Okay, great. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us here today. Today is World Backup Day 2022, and that's what we're here to talk about. The name of our webinar today is Increased Cybersecurity Risk. And we believe that the risk, what do we mean by that? We're really talking about risk of data breach, risk of data loss, risk of infection from some kind of a malware or ransomware. And we believe that the risk of these things is increasing globally. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that today, why we believe that, and maybe some of the things you can do about it. So again, thank you for celebrating World Backup Day with us here on March 31st. And what is World Backup Day? Really, it's an industry holiday. It's a reminder or a marker for us to take a long, hard look at our security policies, at our backups, of course, and make sure that those are reliable, that they're workable, they're restorable. And this is a holiday, I guess I'll call it, once a year that takes place. But I think if you're a sysadmin, you know that this is an ongoing process, has to be ongoing as environments change and the world changes. So let's go ahead and dive into our webinar today. And I'd also like to mention that if you've got your own security anecdotes, stories, maybe how backup has saved you in the past, or maybe challenges you're facing, please utilize that chat window that you have. We've got one of our experts fielding questions, and anything that's overly, requires additional attention, we can always hit at the end in our Q&A session, or even in a follow-up one-on-one call if needed. So yeah, even if you got a little story for us that we can bring up later on, that would be great. Or any questions related to backup, we'd love to hear them. So let's get started here. My name is Sean. I'm the marketing director here at NovaBACKUP. Basically, I'm working with our MSP partners on the marketing team. I'm helping them to be more successful. That could be any number of things. It could be building out education like this webinar. Maybe it's documents, strategy documents, checklists, tools, whatever our MSP partners are asking for. Clearly, this webinar is not just for MSPs. We have we support thousands and thousands of businesses, small and large, with our backup products. But we have a very strong team of MSP partners who are delivering managed backup services to their clients. I spend a lot of time on our blog. If you haven't seen that, you might want to check that out sometime. It's www.novabackup.com/blog. And I write a lot of the articles there, as well as other contributors, such as Adam Stufflick. Adam is also on board with us today. I hope I have you here. Adam, do I have you online?
Yeah, hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to be on again and speaking with all you guys. A lot of familiar names in the chat, a lot of unfamiliar names, which is cool. And hopefully we will get to know each other. So yeah, I'm here.
Great. Adam, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about what you do over at NovaBACKUP.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm the scary guy on the right there that looks like you might need a shave. I do a lot of the cloud business manager stuff, meaning I talk with just about all the MSPs that come on board or wanting to come on board, do a lot of the support, the setup, implementation, the go-to type guy right away, especially during the first 30 to 60 days during transition period, coming on board to make sure, everybody's comfortable with the software, knows how to use it, or at least if they don't, there's someone they can speak to right away. So that's what I do.
Great. And you see both of our email addresses up there. Feel free to ping us on anything following the webinar. Yeah, Adam's in the thick of it. He's working one-on-one with the MSPs and and so forth on a daily basis, dealing with the challenges out in the in the real world, I would say. And being the far more technical of the two of us, I kind of hope to call on Adam here and there, get his opinion, call on his breadth of experience. So moving forward. Our agenda for today. So why is cyber attack risk elevated? We're saying it's elevated. Why? We're going to explain that. We see kind of a general, NovaBACKUP is based in California, in the United States. And I think, we're seeing a general momentum here in the US with the way things are moving in terms of cyber risk. But I don't think it's just the US. I think it's a kind of a global feeling at the moment. Maybe others have things to say about that, but we're going to be talking about that. What the government is saying. I don't think it's just the US government, but we are getting consistent messaging from the government in the United States about cybersecurity and risks. What steps you can take today? There's just a few preventable measures that pretty much everybody can take that will drastically reduce the risk of some kind of a security threat. Like I said, it's World Backup Day, so it would be crazy to not talk about backup a little bit. We're here to say that verifying your backup restorability is critical. Our backup is only as good as its restorability. And kind of at the end, we'll have a little open forum, some questions, your chance to hit Adam or myself with any specific questions related to backup, or like we said, any little stories, anecdotes you have about backup out in the field. But first, I want to throw a little poll up here on the screen. I know that many of you are working with customers and dealing with data loss, and I just want to see what your are as far as causes of data loss out there. Let me grab my poll here and put that up on the screen. So just asking, which of these causes of data loss have you and or your customers experienced? You should be able to select multiple options here. We'd love to get, if you could just, everybody who's on board could click in and let us know which of these you've experienced yourself or your customers have experienced. I see the results coming in already. 50% voted, 60%. Just a couple more people, and I'll put the results up on the screen so that we can all take a look and see what's coming across. 69% voted, one or two sleeping in there maybe, but looks like we've got quite a bit of feedback. Ooh, 77%. Great. All right. Well, I don't want to sit too long on this. 85% voted. Oh man, we're a passing grade now. I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll then and put it up on the screen so everybody can see. There we have it. So 91% of you have experienced, or your clients have experienced, some kind of hardware failure, software error, human error. It's one of the leading causes of data corruption, data loss for sure. Power failure, it looks like human error, natural power failure, and ransomware are all pretty close in that kind of second place category. But yeah, absolutely, we've all experienced hardware failure, software failure causing some data loss and issues. Okay, very good. So moving into our first category, why is cyber attack risk elevated? So there's a few different reasons that we believe the risk, prominent reasons. I think there are many reasons, but the pandemic that we've all experienced created a fundamental change in the way that we're all doing business. We've seen that in the last year or 2 years, suddenly businesses have had to make quick adjustments to, work at home mandates and so forth. And so we've had just a huge increase in number of remote workers across the board. And that's meant, these workers accessing unsafe Wi-Fi networks potentially. Password management has not been as clearly mandated from system administrators. The use of personal devices, personal storage media. These security policies are not as easily managed for remote workers as they are within the office. Yeah, and lack of an on-site administrator all makes a big difference. And it's not that hackers don't know this. Everybody knows this, that this increase in remote workers is a potential weak point or access point into launching ransomware or other types of malware into an organization. Adam, have you seen this kind of activity or these kinds of challenges, I'll say, with remote workers in the MSPs that you've worked with?
Oh yeah, sure. Not only just the MSPs, but us as a company as well. But yeah, I talk with a lot of the MSPs out there. It was a big adjustment, not only for them, but for their customer base. Everybody was freaking out. How do we do this? Again, on both sides of the fence, whether it's the end users or the MSPs, the data control, losing control of it, I think was a big threat on both sides, especially upper management, but also for the MSPs, right? Because if something goes bad, the service provider is the one that all the fingers get pointed at on even what do we do next. So yeah, we definitely did that. I mean, even us as a company, the way that we worked with MSPs changed, right? We changed a lot of the business, the way that we work with them, the forced addition to things that we've added to the NovaBACKUP offering. Being able to manage backups and things like that through a portal, it just had to happen. There was so many endpoints getting added to a lot of these service providers protection list, I'll call it, that everybody had to adapt. So yeah, right. I definitely hear a lot of these stories.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks like I was looking at the cost of data breach report put out by IBM, and they were saying that remote work was a factor in roughly 18% of data breaches last year. So no small impact there. But we also see a lot of current events that are having an impact lately as well. I have escalating world conflict here up on the screen. And again, this is not designed to be any kind of a political webinar whatsoever, but the kind of messaging we're seeing right now, at least coming from the government, is talking about these the world conflict taking place in Eastern Europe. Clearly, a lot of the high-profile ransomware groups are based out of Russia, out of Ukraine, out of neighboring countries, and that's a hot spot right now in the world in terms of world news and conflict. We've seen denial of service attacks kind of in the early stages of this conflict. We've seen a lot of activity, not just from governments, but also from these actual hacker groups that are based there. We've seen governments warning that there may be indirect spillover from military operations taking place. I know there was a new malware, I believe, that was released, a data wiping malware that was that started infecting computers, several hundreds of computers in neighboring countries such as Latvia and Lithuania. So we are seeing these things happening in real time. And then, our government's saying direct retaliatory attacks. I don't think we've seen a massive, news headline of direct attacks from that part of the world at this point, fortunately. But we're getting those warnings. What seems like almost a daily basis. There's some kind of something in the news talking about this. And then, the warnings that we're seeing from government, from these ransomware groups are claiming that they may attack the U.S. or the U.S. allies And really, regardless of that, I think the main concern is that any conflict that includes cyber warfare has the potential to spill out to neighboring countries. And then what other countries might be involved that we don't even know behind the scenes getting involved. There's a lot of, I would say, it's not so clear as to who may or may not be involved with the current conflicts. And then something a little bit more simple in terms of why ransomware attacks, different kinds of malware attacks are increasing is it's making money. It's making money for someone. These groups are not just encrypting data anymore. They're threatening to release it. They're taking critical, very personal, private data, and they're extorting people. Is what it comes down to. Cyber insurance, which seems like something that's being more and more highly recommended for organizations. Those businesses are taking heavy losses, and they're kind of trying to figure it all out and restructure their plans so that clearly they don't want to lose as much money as they're losing. But the attacks are on the rise, and this is something that the cyber insurance companies are seeing, and businesses are paying the ransom. I think these groups have gotten better at maybe communicating their message or making their payment amounts that they are requesting of people to be somewhat realistic. I don't know, Adam, would you agree that these groups have gotten better at getting payments out of people, or why do you think businesses are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mindset of a lot of people is it probably won't happen to me because I'm not big enough. And I think that's it's false, right? The way that these guys, I mean, if you just actually bring in the logic of criminal, like robbing something, right? So let's say, how many people rob a big bank? Not many, right? They're usually locked down. They got things tight. They got guards. They got everything else. But what they will do is hit the people on the streets. They'll hit 7-Elevens. They'll hit stores. All this stuff. Why? Because it's easier. It used to be there just used to be the big targets, right? And they still are. They're 100% are. But what you're seeing now is these smaller companies, dental offices, anything like this are getting hit because it's easier, and they'll pay faster because they're scared. A lot of people don't even have an MSP or a service provider to look after them. So what happens is, first of all, they probably have to figure out what an actual Bitcoin is, even though now, again, crypto and everything like that is getting more known, but you're never too small to be hit by these people. We see it all the time. We used to see it just once a week, once in a while, in the tech group and things like that with our customers, and now we see it daily. So, trying to get your customers, I know fear is probably a really horrible tool to use, but I mean, right now it's the only tool that works. And again, they have to get protected. So yeah, again, no, not too big, not too small. It's not an if, it's a when. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there should be cause for concern. I mean, with if you're making a payment to a group and they're based, in an area of conflict, then I don't know. I wouldn't have a whole lot of confidence myself in that payment was going to necessarily result in restoring all my data. Yeah, but like you said, I mean, if I own some crypto, then I think it's becoming a lot more common to use cryptocurrencies across the world, and so maybe it's just getting it's not so mysterious for people to make a payment, and we're just seeing more businesses rather than having a reliable backup, or maybe in addition to having a backup, they also are making payments to these groups, which unfortunately continues to propagate additional attacks.
Sure.
So moving on. Oh yeah, so looks like an independent survey that I noticed online. The global state of industrial cybersecurity mentioned that 60% of those hit by attacks are paying the ransom. And that was a fairly recent survey within the last year. So I think there are additional reasons to this, but these are the major factors that we're seeing as far as why the risk of attack is being elevated. And the effects, I think, are pretty clear. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide, but I referenced several recent reports, and some said 60-something%, some said 80-something%, but the increase in ransomware attacks is increasing across the board, pretty much regardless of what report or survey you're looking at. And talking about industries, healthcare has been kind of the winner or loser, I guess, depending on how you look at it, for the past several years when we're talking about the actual cost of data breach. And it makes a lot of sense because industries like healthcare have additional regulations that they have to meet. HIPAA compliance as well can result, not meeting compliance can result in additional fines, which I'm sure you all know, but healthcare is taking the largest financial hit in terms of what sector of the industry. And I should probably mention that cybersecurity positions in the U.S. Open positions there's over 600,000 unfilled positions in cybersecurity in the U.S. right now. So there's kind of a crunch for cybersecurity talent, and that's kind of creating a weakness across the board, an opportunity for hackers to take advantage of systems that are not as finely tuned as they should be. So what the government is saying, the first recent message that I really noticed came out of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency here in the USA, a shields up warning for the US private sector, including healthcare, based on the increased cybersecurity threat posed by the Russian government. That's their words, not mine. And they're saying we should be on the lookout for this as early as about a month ago. There was a specific advisory about Conti, which is one of the major ransomware groups based in Russia, due to noticeable rise in attacks. It's CISA, FBI, NSA. And based on involving intelligence, President Biden urges private sector to harden cyber defenses immediately. And that was last week. And I believe what he said was, it's coming. I don't know. I assume President Biden's intelligence is better than mine, the security intelligence that he's receiving. So regardless of whether or not you think this is absolute fact or fear mongering, I think better safe than sorry to get our systems in place and ready to meet any kind of threat. And this week, I didn't even get up here on the slide yet, but CISA Director Jen Easterly said we should consider every sector vulnerable. We should assume that there's going to be disruption due to cyber attack activity. And the criminals, I thought this was kind of cool, seeing that the Conti group is putting out their own messaging. Again, I'll just quickly read these and move it on. Conti team is officially announcing a full support of Russian government. If anybody will decide to organize a cyber attack against Russia, we will use our full resources to strike back. And then they updated that just slightly later saying that they will use their full resources to retaliate against American cyber aggression. So calling out the US very specifically from these ransomware groups. So steps that you can take today, steps that all of us can take today. I think there's just a few basic precautions that can go a long way in protecting your critical data. Updating and patching. And Adam, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Like I'm if there's any comments that you'd like to make on some of these ways that people, or things that I've neglected to mention about how people can better protect their critical data. But
Yeah,
I know
certainly.
updating and patching is always at the top, making sure that your hardware, firmware is updated, software is updated, and just not updating is just leaving a back door open to cyber attack.
Well, and one thing on that too, and I think a lot of the tech guys know about this, before you start going out there and throwing out a bunch of updates and patches, back up your current configurations first, right? I think everybody knows that. It's just a shout out to that type of stuff. Dump your configs to your routers, switches, and all that stuff. Anything hardware that can dump configs, do it. Then do your upgrades, right? But again, I don't think I probably have to tell a lot of the guys in here, but just one of those notes. Sometimes you forget the day-to-day rush. We all need those little reminders. So
Sure, that's a good point. Implementing multi-factor authentication, absolutely. Managing permissions, user roles, and making sure that people have the rights that they need to do their job, but not necessarily a whole lot more than that. We don't want to see accounts hijacked or taken advantage of. Running simulations. This is a great one. This can mean any number of things. Certainly, penetration testing is something that some organizations find can be very helpful to see how their employees are reacting to malicious emails, or things possibly clicking on things that they shouldn't. This can be conducted internally or with third-party company, but it doesn't have to be necessarily this complicated. You can run simple scenarios internally, make sure that you have a plan in place and that people understand what actions they should take, who their points of contact are, and to get a good idea of what are people going to do in an actual scenario. Employee education, absolutely. Heightening awareness, making sure that people are aware of the heightened threat that we are under right now, and that that their questions are answered, that they know what to do, the actions to take place, who to notify, and who their security team is. Compliance requirements. Again, many of you are dealing with healthcare, dental, that have to deal with HIPAA compliance. We have organizations dealing with PCI, and educational organizations who have their own requirements as well. So making sure that you're under compliance, following all the keeping the number of copies of data that you need to is all quite important to keeping the shield, your shield of protection up, I'll say. And implementing a response plan. Absolutely. We've got some documents for this. We'll probably have a follow-up email, but definitely within our site, you can find some different tools for putting your own security response plan or data breach response plan into place, and just laying things out as clear as possible to where a new employee would be able to explain to you that the actions that they need to take should a data breach occur.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the education of employees too. That response plan. I think more than just one person should have this. It should be almost like a call ladder, flow chart type of thing. If you can't get a hold of person A, go to person B, and person B does this. I feel sometimes certain IT people carry everything just on their shoulders. And what happens if that guy gets hit by a bus or that lady gets hit by a bus? Then what? All the plans are gone. No one knows what to do, right? So I think you need to share that with employees, and everybody needs to be aware. They need to have accurate timeframes or who to call and what to do, because when panic happens, that's exactly what happens is panic. Everybody throws their hands up and then starts freaking out. and they need to know what to do. So that kind of ties a little bit into the education of employees as well.
Absolutely. And backup testing, of course, it's above and beyond. Should all else fail within the organization, if you've got a reliable backup that you can count on, then I think not all is not lost. Especially if you can get that backup restored quickly, and dollars flowing again within the organization. And I think that's clearly the most critical part of downtime. I think for any company, aside from losing data permanently, is the loss of money per minute, in association with downtime.
Yeah, I stress that as much as possible. Verifying your restores and things like that. I mean, you can go to the next one because that probably ties it in, but that's one thing when I'm talking with the MSPs, it's so important. So.
Right, and your backup strategy, it's something that you should be reviewing yearly. I mean, at the least, but I think we're in a evolving situation where people need to be looking at the strategies that they have in place regards to backup on an ongoing basis, making sure that remote employees are covered, that critical applications are being protected, virtual machines, business applications, and so forth. 3-to-1 backup at a minimum. It's the old standard, 3 copies of data, at least 2 different types of media, and at least 1 copy of data offsite. Maybe this is outdated. I know there's other standards that people are mentioning these days, but at a bare minimum, you want to have something like this in place. Not have all your eggs in one basket. If an asteroid hits, you want to be able to pull your data from that offsite location and get back up and running as soon as possible. Setting your testing schedule, right? Everybody hopefully has a backup, but how many of those people are testing their backups on any kind of regular basis? I think that's a huge problem, honestly, out there in terms of the amount of testing that's being done and how often it's being done. So setting your schedule, making sure you're sticking to that, and also notifying clients and letting them know that you're testing, especially if you're an MSP. You're doing this as a service, and that value should be recognized. And so what do we mean by testing backups? Often that means performing restores from the cloud, performing restores from images, performing restores from local storage devices, at least once a quarter. All right. Adam, anything to add to that in regards to performing restores or restore testing, setting your testing schedule?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so this gives both you the peace of mind and your customer a peace of mind, right? I mean, that's the obvious. And it's also giving you real world time frames. The first thing that's going to happen, they're going to ask you is how long is this going to take to get my stuff back? And if you don't have a valid answer, it's not going to be good. Or worse, you say, hey, I'll get this back in 2 hours and it takes 10. That's going to avoid that type of stuff. If you make a good practice of actually trying your restores out, testing them out, and relay this, right? Hey, I tested this folder in this X whatever file server and it took this long. Give them that type of stuff. Give them a report. Show more value, right? So again, when you come with them to the bill the next time, they're like, well, what are we paying for? Well, here you go. Here's a report. Here's what we do, and here's what we did. So it all plays back to just having a good repetition, right? A good routine, and letting them know you're doing it, and provide them with something, some type of tangible report or email that says, hey, look, all this was done. It just looks good on you, and then also obviously very useful when problems happen.
Right. Yeah, and when we look at why people aren't testing more, I think it comes down to their confidence level, how much they're afraid that it's going to be spending too much time. They're maybe afraid that they're not prepared or that it's going to disrupt, would be too disruptive. I don't know, but there seems to be a hesitancy there. And we'd love to hear from you guys. What is your confidence level with your current backup technology? Um, I've got a quick pull up here on the screen. Again, I won't leave it up here for very long, but we just love to hear from you. Are you confident with your current backup technology? Somewhat confident, not confident either in product or support, because we know that you could have a great product, but if it doesn't have any support behind it, that can be a real problem. Or maybe you got really great support, but the product needs a lot of work. Or you don't have an effective backup in place. I won't share the results of this one in case it's I think it's still pretty. It's not showing anybody's identities or anything, but we just love to hear some feedback from you, and I will relay the general reply. 67% voted. Great. Thanks, guys. Maybe one or two more, and I'll go ahead and close this out. I'll go ahead and close it out. So 63% somewhat confident in their backup technology that they're currently using. Appreciate the feedback, folks. So quickly, how NovaBACKUP can help you guys and how we can support your efforts. Again, we offer solutions, backup technology solutions, both to businesses, organizations that need that local and cloud backup within their organization. But we also have NovaBACKUP Cloud for MSPs, which is our platform that allows managed service providers to deliver managed backup services to their clients. That includes remote backup monitoring. We have a central monitoring console, which also has management functionality. You can see your backups that are running for all your clients at a glance, set those management roles, and really have that on the road, on the run as you need it. Local and cloud, it's very flexible as well. You can set this to backup to our cloud. We have our own cloud storage, or you can use your own cloud storage. All inclusive. I think a lot of the backup solutions out there, there's some great ones that are out there, but a lot of them, their pricing structure is just kind of wacky sometimes. They price things out per feature, or kind of some of these kind of odd pricing plans. So we just try to keep it really simple here and have everything included. Include all the your SQL Exchange, your virtual machine backup, all that functionality. It kind of comes down at one price point. We're based here in the U.S. As I kind of hinted at before. I think support is 50%, in my opinion, of the solution, and having people that you can call on and work with you, either working directly with your customer, getting on the same call if necessary, or just working with you to make sure that from a management perspective that all of your backups technology is as you expect. And of course, we are meeting regulatory compliance. We've received the HIPAA seal of compliance verification with the compliancy group. We've gone through additional training to make sure that we're meeting those education, dental, healthcare requirements, special requirements they have to protect personal patient information. And pay-as-you-grow model, we don't ask for a huge amounts up front, anything like that. We recognize that many of you guys are growing managed service providers, and that you're adding a client or two, or handful at a time, and that your solutions need to scale as you're scaling and as you're your income is scaling. So yeah, I would say that, you know, as we encourage you guys to bounce ideas off of us, customer or not, you know, we're here to help those that want, and we want to spread the word, of course, about protecting your data with backup. At this point, go ahead and open it up. If anybody has any comments, any questions related directly to backup, any stories about maybe how backup saved you or saved your customer, we'd love to hear from you. You know, I did hear a couple of weeks ago that we had a ransomware infected trucking company, and one of their admin server was infected, and they had payroll due, I think, the next day, and their server was completely locked down. And you know, we had NovaBACKUP Cloud installed. There was a weekly disaster recovery job that was running, and they were able to pull that server, you know, back to life relatively quickly. I think, you know, I think the first couple of days they struggled with regular hardware, and they were trying to get data back through the RAID and changing disks and so forth. But they just got us back on the line with them, and were able to get that server restored in a relatively short amount of time. I think, yeah, like I said, I think they struggled the first couple of days, and then we got them back online and got payroll done, and kind of saved the day there. So that was a nice success story to hear. Anything that you've worked on, Adam, that you can grace us with? Any good stories?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, the reason why I mentioned dental, I think when we were talking about, you know, targets and all these things, is because I just actually spoke with a dental practice, well, last couple days. One was when things went crazy, and two is the follow up, you know, making sure everything was not crazy anymore. But yeah, they got hit. Same thing, right? If they're not seeing patients, they're not seeing money, essentially. And normally dental practices have like the livelihood, I'll call it, the one single server that is everything, the databases, the images, you know, everything's on there. And if they don't have that, they are really in trouble. So they were able to actually, their local backups actually were what saved them as well. They didn't have to actually reach out to the cloud at all. They had a well implemented local backup solution to a NAS device. So again, you can have all the prevention sitting in front of your network, but nothing's 100%. So when it does get through, your main fallback is going to be a well implemented backup solution. So they weren't one of those people that put the NAS device in there and started doing map drives, or because it was easy, they just, you know, left it open. They actually locked it down, used our software to set it up to gain access securely, and that they were able to recover. So it was a pretty feel-good type story. We always have the stories where, of course, you know, not a feel-good story, but we have the feel-goods more than we don't, as long as you have it well implemented. And that goes with anything, whether it's the preventative measures, right, or the backups. If you implement something poorly, it doesn't matter how good it is, it won't work.
Sure, absolutely. Hey, you want to pull up the questions window, Adam, and see? We've got a couple questions that rolled in. I don't know, sure if there's something in there that we're able to address now.
Yeah. So I had a couple of actual people say any demo, and we don't really we're not going to do a demo on here. We're trying to keep it as short as possible, even though we're getting long. But the demos, we like to do more one-on-one. I feel if we just do a demo to a bunch of people here, we're probably not going to address the certain things that you guys might want. We reach out to us, you know, msp@novabackup.com. We'll line you up with probably myself or one of us in-house to do a demo, do a more of a one-on-one approach, which is kind of like we like to do, because you guys aren't all the same, right? You have different customers, different beliefs when it comes to, you know, how you want to do backups and things. So we'd rather talk with you one-on-one, get it going. We'll keep it technical, right? If the technical shoe fits, then we'll talk business. But yeah, reach out to us, let us know. We'll line it up and get it going for you. So is it agent or agentless? That's actually a really good question as well. We have an agent that lives on any machine that needs data protected on it. So the NovaBACKUP agent is installed there, and from that machine, you're able to do your local images, local file and folder, application-aware type style backups, right? So like your MS SQLs, VMware, Hyper-V, you name it, and then also the offsite. So yes, we do require an agent be installed on a particular machine where data exists. So what are some of the common issues you are seeing with setups that people don't realize? Oh, well, so kind of like I was talking about, I think one of the most common, I mean, there's lots of things, and again, I'm not perfect by any means, but I've been around a long time to kind of see whether I've learned from my own mistakes or from, you know, the thousands of MSPs that I've talked to over the years. To me, one of the poor things are the way to implementing devices locally. The biggest, like I just said, that NAS device, there are so many people that just throw a NAS on the network, and because it's easy, they just leave it open. And that is probably, to me, one of the biggest faults. Again, also not testing restores. That is, to me, a huge mistake if you are a service provider, not testing. But I mean, the list on that could go on for probably a really long time. But to me, those are the ones that stand out most recently. So are the MBDs, which is the NovaBACKUP data file locally, subject to ransomware? Any file that exists on your network, no matter who you are, you're susceptible. But that again comes into play with how you've implemented it. Direct attached devices, they're great for backups, but guess what? If your machine gets hit, you can get hit. Now, there are some cool things out there. I won't mention any exact names because I don't know if I'm even allowed to mention that exact name, but there's a certain hardware company we have worked with where that device can only be spoken to through the NovaBACKUP software. So even if you were to get ransomware on your machine, it wouldn't be able to attack that direct attached device. That's why I also encourage NAS devices, things like that for local backups. They're becoming way more affordable. All right. If you're interested in that too, obviously, you know, we've been partnered with Buffalo for forever. Reach out to us. We can get you into the right model, maybe even get you the right price. So let us know. This one isn't so much a question, but it's more of an informative. I didn't know about this. I haven't heard of this. It's a company called NuBEVA. I think I hope I didn't butcher that, or NuBEVA. NuBEVA. Someone was just saying it's a great tool. Can detect and intercept the symmetric keys used by cyber criminals to encrypt your data. It's been 96% successful, which is pretty impressive. There's other tools out there, guys, that are just not that expensive too. There's canary type tools where you throw a bunch of bait files out there, and if they get hit, it throws up an alert. The Go Fish type things, when we were talking earlier about the education of end users, testing them, right? That Go Fish thing, sending out phishing emails and see if they actually fall for it. There's all sorts of stuff out there. So, but anyways, again, I don't want to go too long. There's more questions. I apologize. If you have any of these though that you want to get, you know, reach out to us. They're right there, msp@novabackup.com. We'll help you out.
Right, yeah, and I went ahead and I kind of threw your calendar link up here, Adam. I hope you don't mind. That if anybody wants to go ahead and schedule just a one-on-one with you, whether that's a demo or whether that's just talking about anybody on this call exclusively wants to talk about their backup strategies and you know, how they can better protect themselves, then you know, hopefully they'll go ahead and get that link and schedule on your calendar with a time that works out for them. And as you said, msp@novabackup.com, that's email address that's always monitored by us to answer your questions related to backup. Great, guys. Well, if there's any additional questions that we didn't get to, I apologize. We'll follow up on those, but we're past our time. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out for today. I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your day. I know there's a lot of webinars these days. So, you know, if you've got feedback, yes, David, we will have a recording available. We're going to get that cleaned up for you, and that'll come in a follow-up email. So I appreciate that, and we hope you all have a great day. And hey, maybe test out those backups. Make sure you can restore when necessary. Talk to you soon. We're going to go ahead and close it out.